Hi guys, welcome to the latest podcast of Yarning Black. Today I've got a really special friend of mine, Naomi on. Hi Naomi.
Hi, AJ. How you going?
Good, I'm so glad that you could join us, but I'll get back to you in a second because I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm currently on at the moment. I'm here in beautiful Naarm on the land of the Wurundjeri people, and I pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. And I want to acknowledge any other Aboriginal people that are tuning in today. And to my fabulous guest, Naomi. How are
Oh,
you?
yeah, I'm good. I'm good, AJ. I've been back a few days now after spending a week or so down there in Naarm, and I've come back to the heat here. But today's actually a little bit cooler, which is a bit of a relief.
That's nice. So, for our viewers that don't know you, give us a little bit of an overview of who you are, where you're from.
Ah, okay. So, Naomi Murphy. I'm a very proud Wakka Wakka Gungari woman, but I also have Irish heritage, hence the Murphy. So my dad's Irish and my mum's Murray. And I am living currently on beautiful Durrumbal country, which is otherwise known as Rockhampton. And I guess my connections here to this country is that my youngest daughter is of Gungaloo descent on her grandmother's side, and Gungaloo covers Blackwater, which is about 2 hours out of Rocky Blackwater area, but also Woorabinda Mission, which is about 200 kilometres out of Rockhampton, is the mission where my mother was born. So my mother was actually born out on the riverbank with my nan and pop, lived quite harmoniously with family and community, but then sadly was part of the stolen generation and removed off country. But
Yeah.
I feel like when I'm here, I feel connected to my mum. I feel connected to my nan and pop because they lived throughout Rockhampton as well, even though I never got to really physically meet them.
Yeah. Now, for people that don't know where Rockhampton is, where would you explain where Rockhampton actually is?
It's central Queensland, so 6 hours north of Brisbane and 6 hours south of Townsville. So pretty much in the middle of Townsville and Brisbane. But very interestingly so, the local river here is called, the coloniser name is Fitzroy River, but the Durrumbal traditional custodian's name is Toonabar. And the Toonabar, which a lot of us call it, is where the barramundi comes from. So barramundi is a Durrumbal word meaning fish, like the barramundi. So it's traditional to this country.
One of my favourite fish to eat.
Best fish. We've actually got a crocodile in the river at the moment, so it's a bit of a
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I won't be going down
I'll
there
fish
any
it.
crocodiles.
But
So where did you actually grow up?
well, our story is a little bit different because mum being part of the stolen generation, we were never raised up on country, and we travelled in between where mum was raised with her white foster family in a town called Maryborough in Queensland and
Yeah.
Tasmania. So Tasmania is where all the Murphys are from, like my dad's side of the family, and spent a lot of time there with extended family, and we sort of alternated between Tassie and Queensland, and two very different communities. But we ended up in Melbourne in the early 80s because Dad got a job on the trams, and we just ended up staying there. I mean, we'd always go back and visit Queensland. I haven't been back to Tassie since I was a kid, but I've come back to Queensland, back to country and reconnecting, and had my daughter here in Rockhampton, came and had her close to country. So Melbourne is like a second home because I had my two first kids there in Naarm, and then I moved down to Gunnai, Kurnai country,
Yeah.
which is where I stayed and loved and worked in community for 20 odd years.
Yeah. So you moved back to Queensland, was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, just as COVID was kicking in. So my daughter finished grade 6, and we sort of made the decision, let's go. And COVID, all that lockdown, and I was working in community still, but I was doing a lot of GMA, taking in kinship care, having Aboriginal kids in out of home care, which I love doing.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where I felt like the system was just having me on speed dial, and they were kind of using me, and they actually burnt me out. So it was nothing to do with community or mob. I'd always open my home up and my heart, but I just felt really overwhelmed as probably the main person that child protection will call, and it did take its toll. But it was nice to be come back up this way, and there was freedom, no lockdowns or anything, and straight back into working in community.
So the kids and you're great into netball up there. I see on Facebook all the time.
Yeah. So I've pretty much said I've done. I couldn't help myself. So the work I did in community, coaching Aboriginal girls in netball and dancing, teaching Aboriginal dance and everything. I just did it all again up here, but I'm going to take a little break to myself now that I'm empty nesting, but then I can't help myself because I'm actually thinking about starting up. I want to teach dance here, but with really young kids, like 3s and 4s and 5-year-olds, and put something together for NAIDOC because I love the new NAIDOC theme. And because I've been teaching, one of the things Destiny and I did, my daughter, was revive her Gungaloo women's dancing. And they'd been dormant since 2008. So with her elders, all my in-laws, we all sat down, and they told the stories, and Destiny and I did the choreography, created the choreography. And we've been doing that here for the last 3 years out on her country and also around town locally.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so that was really special.
Yeah. Did both of you would have been on a real learning journey as well, learning the stories that go behind the dance?
Yeah, and we had the idea as well because there's only one matriarch left out of all of Destiny's on her grandmother's side. Her grandmother is in the Dreamtime as well. So having Auntie Pat there to tell those stories, and I actually wanted to document it. I mean, we still can, but it would have been good to have made documents, videoed it along the way. It's still something that needs to be done, especially Auntie Patty's, the only surviving elder there. But it's nice because then Destiny's gone on to teach her niece, so we connected with her. She has a niece and 2 nephews here in Rocky, and she's gone on to teach her little 10-year-old niece Aboriginal dance, Gungaloo dance, and she's really never been connected with her mob. So over the last couple of years, Destiny's pretty much done that, so and loved it. We're both learning, but I mean, she's my daughter has been very blessed that I have been in a space where I've had the ability to teach her culture and connect her, whereas my mum didn't, because no fault of her own, but stolen generation. My mum's name was changed. She was encouraged to marry, a white fella. She was, put through the Catholic school system. There's all these, she was taken off country. She never got to live with her siblings again. So all these things that my mum was denied, I've worked really hard to make sure Destiny was able to, be around that.
Yeah. And how old's Destiny now?
Oh, sorry, what was that?
How old's Destiny now?
Just turned 15.
Yep. Is she the one in Melbourne school now?
Yeah, she's boarding at MLC, and the scholarships they have there is just, as you probably know, are mind-blowing. The cohort, the week I spent down there, I met a lot of other Aboriginal families that had come from either interstate or just in Vic, and, that area's got all those great schools, and there's so many black kids at them, and it was just like, oh, especially because when we moved to Melbourne, we grew up in that area and there was no mob around, let alone kids in the school.
Yeah.
So, just goosebump moment. So we're all very proud.
Yeah. And she's enjoying it?
Oh, loving it. So she's gone.
Hasn't it been a week?
Yeah, a week. Yeah, literally. So already she's done a dance workshop. So she'll be dancing with her, with Wala Connections, with Auntie Tara Brown and Auntie Caroline Briggs down at the Willet Nagi St Kilda Festival. So the girls are dancing the closing sunset ceremony. So get down to that if you can on the 17th. So she's teaching dance down there with Wala and with Auntie Tara. And she went to netball training with Nam Angels last night over in Preston Way. So she's going to be, back in community there and doing her schooling.
Oh, cool. I'll ask you a question. When you went to school that far back, like me, how much Aboriginal studies were you taught?
Oh, look, there was none. I remember I remember in Hawthorn West Primary School, like we were the only Aboriginal kids there, so that's primary school just up the road from a little bit up the road from MLC, and we were the only Aboriginal kids there, and everybody just thought we were like Greek or Italian. And I remember, because Mum is she's got beautiful dark skin, when she'd come to the school, kids were nasty, like they were mean. But I sort of navigated towards hanging out with the Italians and the Greeks, and, you know, they were good to me. So, yeah, it was tough because nothing was ever, it was always just, you know, Captain Cook, Australia Day. There was never no NAIDOC. There was nothing like that. So just to see how far they've come, you know, putting my daughter through primary school down in the valley in Traralgon, you know, having a courier worker, acknowledging NAIDOC week and all the cultural significance of it all is really good.
Yeah. Do you think it's changed a lot in the last 20 years or so?
Oh, it's changed heaps. I mean, there's still a long way to go, but just having been on that journey with my daughter, you know, kindy to primary school to high school, it's just been, there's been so many doors that have been opened and opportunities. That's not to say there's still not racism out there. I mean, here in town locally, we have a really big population, like biggest mob of Murrays, and it's so deadly, but it can also be, you know, there is that racism, especially when like Rockhampton is a farming town, like community. So you've got a lot of farmers that, you know, pull a lot of strings, and yeah, sometimes that racism does come into it, which sucks.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question. What does reconciliation mean to you?
Oh, this one, I was so up and down because I didn't know a lot about reconciliation. Well, it wasn't something that was really around, like when I say around, like spoken about in our house. I guess it was more when I started working back in community that it became a thing, and then mob were all for it, and then there was this massive shift, you know, like bucking against it, and I actually stopped boycotting. You know, I was being approached for my dance group, Dreamtime dance troupe, to dance for the local council, and I would say no, and all that sort of thinking. And the reason why was because I didn't see any change. I just saw it as a really tokenistic sort of week, and there was nothing happening, especially in the valley where it was really, really oppressed, and still is. So I sort of buckled against that and just focused on NAIDOC and doing my work in community. But you know, it's getting so commercialised now. I think it's kind of missing the point. I don't know. I don't have a lot to do with it. I'm not to say I don't want reconciliation. I think a lot of mob are more talking, you know, how can you reconcile with something that we still haven't got treaty? We still, you know, have deaths in custody, everything that's still happening. We've got our good things like, you know, our kids with these scholarships, but it's got to continue. You can't just say, oh, we've done one, you know, we've got these scholarships and now we're right, we can reconcile. No, it doesn't work like that. Like it's got to come from the top, you know, treaty, self-determination.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. I also add that I think sometimes reconciliation has to occur with the person. They need to reconcile their own thoughts and feelings about and their history themselves. If that means they have to unlearn, relearn, retrain, reprogram themselves. So reconciliation for me is something that starts within yourself. Before I can actually reconcile with anybody else, I need to reconcile with myself.
Exactly. Yeah. And for non-mob, that's on them. It's not up to us to educate. I mean, we do our part because we do it because we're proud and we want people to understand and learn and know. But as you know, we can't work ourselves into the ground to educate. the wider community, they've got to take some responsibility too.
Yeah. Now, for people that may not know, you won the Victorian Indigenous Emerging a Leader Award in what year was it? 2012? 2018.
Yeah, 2018. Yeah, yeah. And what year was yours?
2015.
Oh, so a few years. Yeah.
Years
I knew
before
you were
you.
before me. Yes. And that was our connection. So
Yes.
I think it's been great because I know look, awards are a bit I mean, my mentor who'd supported me in applying, she wanted me to do it for a few years early, and I was like, oh, I don't know about awards. I don't really win them. What is it? What's a scholarship? I didn't really know what it was, and it's just been, the night was life changing. Actually getting the phone call from the Fellowship of Indigenous Leadership was just amazing, and then looking at all the alumni, the mob that had done the great work, and I knew so many, and the biggest mob at Gippslanders as well. I was like,
yeah.
wow. I was so proud, and to have Lydia Thorpe there, she personally wanted to give me that award because we have a connection as well from our Gippsland days and old Centrelink days. But it was just the best night, honestly, and I had my family there, and then went on to do some really good stuff around Aboriginal women's culture and healing with the scholarship.
Yeah. That was like, 7 years.
I know.
7 years ago. Yeah.
So long. And it was still such an important part of my healing journey because I'd just come out of, and I can, I don't want to trigger anyone, and I can talk about it openly. I had been in a very toxic DV situation a few years earlier, and was still healing from that. So it was really emotional as well, especially coming from that part of my life. And it was like, like I said, I don't think that I'm a leader. I mean, I quoted Tupac on the night,
Yeah.
Tupac, he says, I'm not a leader. I want to walk with my people side by side, And I was like, I'm not going to start rapping, but I did quote Tupac, and everyone loved it.
What I was going to ask you, what was the best thing that you did that year with the scholarship money that you got?
I think just being able to offer Aboriginal women in the valley who, there was nothing. Historically, there had been deadly programs that, respected elders had ran back in the day, but over the years, the funding had dwindled away, or they got, too old to still run those deadly programs. So to be able to come in and offer, an Aboriginal women's group and trips on country, like we went up to the Japurung sacred birthing trees and did a whole weekend up there. Some of the women had never even camped before. Like I went and bought sleeping bags, tents, and they lived in the valley all their lives and they've never been out of the valley or camped out. And they treated us like queens up there, the mob up at the at the Japurung trees. They had feed ready, camp area ready. They had special place for the elders. We didn't have to lift a finger because we had all our allies there too, see? And it was just amazing. We just went with the flow, there wasn't a set agenda. But just getting goosebumps thinking about it. So for me, that was a real special. It was nice just to be able to give back, and then the film mob came up and recorded and made a little video of it as well. Yeah, so that was I can share that with you later on if you want to share it around. But
we'll add it to the link. We'll add it to the links underneath the YouTube.
Yeah, just so people can have a look, and things like that. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be. It can be literally just a weekend away, out camping, or doing the trips away that I used to like to do with the women's group and with the young ones as well. So taking the young girls away to sporting carnivals. The scholarship was able me to do that. getting them engaged in, sport and culture.
Yeah. Do you have any role models now or role models growing up?
Oh man, role models growing up were tough. And not to say that I didn't have people that didn't love me around, but I grew up in a home where there was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of there was a lot of love, but there was a lot of trauma. So for me, my role models were always who I saw on TV or, as I got a little bit older, there was when we moved to Melbourne, Mum started working in community over through Aboriginal Hostels Limited, and I remember meeting Auntie Angeline Morgan. And
oh my God, yes.
I was only a little girl, and she was off to bingo. And I remember Auntie being so beautiful but so petite, and just having this beautiful black skin and this white hair. And I'm so close to the Morgans there now in Gippsland, and I know Jeannie knows this. And meeting her and Annie Paddock, she was my mum's boss. So a lot of the Koori mob, when we came down this way, were a good role model to me. Auntie Margaret Atkinson down in the valley. She's not only a elder, but she was a gun netballer back in the day and has an netball award named after her. But and Karen Moborn, there was a few as I started more working in the community, but growing up was tough. It was more just who I saw on TV, and, I loved Janet Jackson and looked up to all the black superstars on TV and wanted to be like them. I guess that counts.
That definitely does count. Definitely does count.
Yeah.
If I could give you $1 zillion and a magic wand, and you could change something within Indigenous affairs, where would you start?
Oh, man. No one's ever asked that question before. I think just abolish the system. Like, I don't know, like pay them off or just put them buy an island and put the whole government on an island. I don't know, or just say you don't have to work, we just want land back. Catch us later and buy the whole of Australia back, man. But honestly though, just having self-determination and having that ownership back, which was rightfully ours, to see mob that are still homeless. We have mob here living on the riverbank, and that's historic. Like, my grandparents spent time on that riverbank. My uncle, who I just lost, and there's still mob that live down there. Services go down there and support them, but there's just not enough houses. Like, build the houses already. Stop building prisons, and Yeah. So I guess it's that, housing, health, self-determination. If you've got a stable home, it just makes all the difference. You can't live on a riverbank and be able to, how are you going to get a good sleep? How's your mental health going to be? Yeah. So I mean, the mob do. Yeah. It's sad. I mean, that the mob, every time I go down there and I walk along the tuna bar, the riverbank, they'll say hello when I stop and have a yarn. But that's been historic here in Rockhampton. But if they had a house to go home to at night time, they probably would choose that, and then go back down there during the day because that's their gathering place. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned self-determination a couple of times. What does self-determination mean to you?
Oh, for me, I guess it just means to be able to have the same opportunity as the wider community, like even if it's, having access to health or having access to housing, just to be on an equal level and be able to be in control of my future, like not having to have that worry about what's happening next week or how am I going to pay the bills next month, and am I smart enough to be able to, am I educated enough to be able to go for that better job that does pay more. All those things that determine our destiny I feel like I'm not in control of. I've got a little bit of control, but there's still so much I'd want to do, like study, like buy my own house. And that to me is self-determination, but I'm not going to have I might not have the opportunity to do that, you know?
But this change, like the change that you're giving your daughter, she might then become the first to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think that's what wider Australian society often acknowledge, that it's this generation or our kids that sometimes are the firsts that are just achieving stuff, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I was yarning about this the other day when I was in at Woorabinda, which is a deadly organisation I'm still involved with down in and you can't measure success. It sometimes takes us 2-3 generations.
Yeah.
It's not an instant thing with us. It's not like, okay, I've got the house, I'm right. Because we've seen that. We've seen mob get payouts, compensation, and buy the house, and it's gone 2 years later.
Yeah.
Because no one has gone and given us the tools to know how to look after that house, or how to pay rates, or how to pay, your water bills and your body corporates, and it's all that, So it takes us 2-3 generations. But and yes, our kids are now in this generation of getting these amazing scholarships and opportunities. But we've also got a generation here right here in Rockhampton, same age as my daughter, a whole generation of Aboriginal kids chroming. So there's still that uneven, and it's a massive issue here in Rockhampton, and I see it daily. Destiny, everybody sees it. The wider community, everybody sees it, because it happens just so out in the open. But we've got to, not forget those children as well. We might say, oh yes, it'll change. Destiny's generation will make change, but let's not leave our kids that are struggling behind. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Now, you would see this in the work that you do as well, but I see a lot of Aboriginal young people that don't know much about culture, might know that they're Aboriginal, want to know more, but they struggle because they don't know where to start. What advice would you give someone who came to you to say, look, I know a little bit about my Aboriginal, not much, but I want to start? Where do you get to start?
Yeah, I know, because it is such a learning. And it was exactly like that. Like, I always knew I was Aboriginal because, people were racist and they would tell you, but also because I would just look at my beautiful black mum. But they didn't make me feel proud of it. And I guess that's the difference. My kids now have always felt proud to be Aboriginal or identify as Aboriginal, So for me, it's still a bit of a learning journey, but what I guess it's not one certain thing. It just happens over time, and you can't force it. It's just got to flow. It might go in ebb and flow. You might reconnect, and then you might come against a barrier. You might be able to go back to country. You might not. You go and talk to the elders. They might know your great grandparents. They might, your local organisations, join a group, join a women's group, or get your kids involved in the Kuri, education group. That's the way that, I connected, and also through sport as well, because there's so much mob playing sport. So there's always someone who will know someone. But it is hard, because especially if you don't fit you might not fit the mold of what an Aboriginal person is, especially, being in the city where it's harder to, because mob is so spread out. Yeah. But, it's a big population down that way in Naarm as well. And, going to things like the rallies now, like 20,000 people, someone's going to know someone, because it's such a melting pot. But I guess I just say, don't just be patient with it and don't force things, and don't, you know, you've got to, it's like walking on country. You've got to respect it. It's not always going to be the happy ending. You know, it wasn't a happy ending for my mum. So now I try to create that for my children and her. And I'm reconnecting mum as well, and brought her back up here. I took her out to Woorabinda a few months back. She hadn't been out there for a long time, out to, you know, her birth country. So things like just being patient, I guess, and can pull at your heartstrings a bit. But if your heart's in the right place and you want to do that for the right reasons.
Yeah. Now you do travel from Rocky to Melbourne quite often.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always following you on Facebook, and I never know where you're going to pop up.
Yeah.
I just wonder, is there a direct flight from Melbourne to Rocky, or do you have to go via somewhere else?
Well, there historically no, with Virgin and Qantas, but now we have Bonza. So Bonza fly direct from Rocky to Melbourne, but only 2 times a week. But depending on why I'm travelling down there, if it's for business, because I'm still the chair of Woorabinda, which is an Aboriginal-led organisation involved in philanthropy. It's been around since 2009. It's where my heart is, as, you know, the founding members I have so much respect for. When I'm down there with them on Woorabinda business, I'll stay in the city there and get around community. I always make sure that I go out to community though as well. Yeah. I think just touching base with grassroots mob, and I tend to end up over Preston side area and running into mob and spending a few days over there, and it's always really good because then I get the work done, the good work that Woorabinda do in community, and then get to catch up with mob.
Yeah. I've got a final question for you, because I know I'm just watching the time, and that is, what would you like people to walk away with? What key message would you like people to walk away with from our yarn tonight?
Oh, look, I just think maybe just be kind. Like, it's been a really rough 6 months. Like, I mean, you know, with the referendum and so much sorry business. Like, just be kind to one another. Like, for mob just to not buckle, because that's exactly what they want us to do, to be, you know, fighting over funding, fighting at sorry business time, and you know, you see some mob, they're just so caught up in the trauma of it, and it's heartbreaking. And just to be kinder to ourselves, you know, and have a bit of empathy, because we're not the enemy. Like, we've got to come together, you know, and they're not either. Like, we don't want enemies, but we've just got to take care of ourselves, really take care of ourselves as mob.
No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Look,
I want some yoga or some breathing, go for a walk on country, that exercise, that fresh air, you know, just does some great stuff.
Get out there. I do see that you do walk a lot. I do see you exercising on Facebook all the time, and you post that where you're up to, and you know that I've been watching, so I'm always liking them.
That's And, you know, we carry trauma. I carried trauma in my weight. I gained a lot of weight after I came out of that domestic violence relationship, and then COVID, I was still struggling with all of that, and I gained a lot of weight, that trauma, and I'm shedding it now, and I cut my hair off because we carry trauma in our hair and things. Just researching and looking into those other ways of me being able to you know, heal from that, instead of turning to the bottle and you know, situations that aren't so good for me. So it's learning, you know, it's learning for me. I mean, it's never finished, it's never going to be perfect, but I just got to do it and try. And the exercise is the best thing ever mentally. Like, I never got to play sport as a kid. We didn't have the money. We didn't have a family car. I never had opportunities or the role models for sport. So I guess that's why I go so hard for Destiny now. But not only that, I mean, she's got the talent and the opportunity, and she loves it. Number one thing.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at the time, and I know that we have to go now. I do want to say how much I really do love you. And it's been a pleasure to have a bit of a yarn with you. We'll catch up when you're down in Melbourne again. But I do want to let everybody know, and you know, I think you're a wonderful mum. I love everything that you do for community. I never heard anyone really badmouth you ever. It's always the good. Yeah, it's always the good side of all the programs that you've been done. And I just want to thank you for the work that you do.
Oh, look, same back at you. So thank you. And, you know, through the fellowship, we've connected and as alumni, and it's just been a journey that I never, my elders would have only dreamed of, as that saying goes, you know. So thank you. And thank you for my very first podcast. I was so nervous, but.
No, thank you. So guys, I'll see you at the next podcast, and thanks, Naomi.
Thank you. Bye.